Hey guys, Goodwin here. Now don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Today we're diving into a crucial question. What makes a nation? And more importantly, how might a nation be destroyed? Let's start with the foundations. I'd suggest there are 6 key elements that define a national community, a people who share a common territory, a shared sense of identity, a collective memory or history, a common language, similar values, a distinctive culture and way of life. Now, of course, economic prosperity matters too, but as the late philosopher Sir Roger Scruton once said, what's far more important than GDP is a profound sense that we belong together, that we will stand by one another in real emergencies. In essence, a nation requires a we, a deep unity, transcending politics and markets. And for that, you need also to have social trust. We must be able to trust one another. Even if we don't necessarily know our next door neighbours, we must believe that they're contributing to society, that they're following the rules, that they're preserving our shared cultural inheritance. So how might you destroy a nation? You'd undermine all of these things. You'd erode that belief in a shared sense of identity, history and culture. You'd flood the country with outsiders who don't contribute, who don't play by the rules, and who hold radically different, if not incompatible, identities, histories, religions, and ways of life. Sound familiar? Well, I ask because that's how many British people feel today, looking at the latest immigration statistics that were released just a few days ago. These numbers reveal a national community that's being subjected, against its wishes, to an extreme policy that's transforming and hollowing out the country that we all once knew. The figures are both astonishing and alarming in equal measure. In the year ending June 2024, some 1.2 million people, equivalent to a city the size of Birmingham, migrated into Britain, again in 1 year. More than 1 million of those people came from outside Europe, from countries with vastly and radically different histories, religions and cultures. Here's just one mind-boggling statistic to think about. 86% of all immigration into Britain today is coming from outside Europe, from outside European nations, primarily from India, Nigeria, Pakistan, China and Zimbabwe. Since 2022, this non-European immigration has consistently represented more than 80% of all immigration into Britain. Just think about that. The vast majority of immigrants who are coming into Britain are now coming from countries with lower levels of education, lower skills, lower prosperity, very different religions, very different cultures that are often utterly different from those that have shaped European civilization. How can we build an integrated, cohesive, prosperous and high-trust society on these kinds of foundations? That's a question many Brits are asking themselves. Does anyone in the expert class have an answer to this question? Is there even a plan for how we are going to manage and integrate this level, this scale of demographic change? Meanwhile, net migration, the number of people entering Britain minus the number of people leaving, remains at an all-time high of some 728,000 and was nearly 1 million the year before the one just gone. Just think about that too. That's 728,000 people looking for homes to buy or rent, school places, doctor's appointments, NHS treatments, all while recent governments on both the left and the right have been slashing spending on public services, have been failing to build sufficient housing. Let me just give you another statistic while I'm here. So Keir Starmer's Labour government just announced that it's going to build 1.5 million homes. But on the kind of migration numbers that we're seeing, more than half of those homes are going to be needed just to keep up with the demand from immigration. Now, the current rate of net migration is more than twice what it was when the British people voted for Brexit in 2016, and they believed their democratically elected politicians when they told them that they would lower the overall numbers. Net migration today is also more than 3 times the figure when the Tories first came to power in 2010, vowing to reduce net migration to the tens of thousands. In just 4 years, net migration has added some 2.5 million people to Britain's population. That's equivalent to about 2 cities the size of Birmingham. It's the biggest wave of immigration on record in our entire history. Yet the political class remains silent about its implications for things like housing, infrastructure, the environment, our national culture, and our social cohesion. Take a step back and look at the wider picture. Since 2012, net migration has added some 4.5 million people to the country, equivalent to 4 cities the size of Birmingham. At what point, I ask, did our mainstream politicians decide to not only ignore people's calls for lower immigration, but to also set out to completely destroy public trust in the entire system? This extreme policy of mass immigration, and that's exactly what it is. It's an extreme policy of mass immigration that has no democratic mandate from the British people, is now hollowing out that shared sense of we that has long defined our nation. It's also making us poorer, despite what the pro-immigration zealots in the Treasury, the expert class, the charities, the universities will be telling you. They're misleading you. Some might say they're lying to you. Here's another shocking statistic to think about. Only 16% of immigrants who've come to Britain since 2018 have come on those high-skill worker visas. The rest are relatives of migrants, students, asylum seekers, and others who are not directly contributing to prosperity. This policy is making us poorer, not richer. Since 2021, for example, more than 1 million Indians have migrated into Britain, but less than half came here to work. Nearly 500,000 Nigerians have arrived in Britain, but only 1 in 3 have come on work visas. And of the nearly 300,000 Pakistanis who have come into Britain, only 1 in 10 are on work visas. The situation is so absurd that last year, relatives of migrant workers coming into Britain outnumbered actual migrant workers. This is quite simply insane. Nobody voted for this. No serious economist or historian would look at this extreme policy of mass immigration and think, yeah, this makes sense. This is how you create prosperous and cohesive nations. What we're living with now is instead what I would call immigration austerity. It's a policy that is pushing us into a low-growth, dismal, and unproductive Deliveroo economy with declining public services. It works really well for global corporations, for big business that's become addicted to cheap migrant labour, and it works well for radical, woke progressives in Brighton, Oxford and Cambridge, for whom pro-immigration has become a new religion. But it works much less well for the forgotten majority in this country. Ordinary men and women, hard-working, tax-paying, patriotic Brits who are left to pay the price of this disastrous policy. And the economic cost is clear. The Office for Budget Responsibility recently pointed out that for every low-wage, low-skill migrant entering Britain, the British taxpayer is footing the bill of between £150,000 and £1 million for each of those low-skilled, low-wage migrants. And look at the astronomical cost of our broken asylum system at the same time. £5.4 billion last year alone, just to keep this broken system ticking over. To put that in perspective, we just took winter fuel payments off British pensioners to save £1.5 billion. That's just 27% of the asylum budget. Local councils just cut frontline public services to save £564 million, a mere 10% of the asylum budget. Our government just smashed family farms up and down this country to raise £520 million. That's not even 10% of the asylum budget. The police in London now face a cut of £450 million, meaning burglary, shoplifting and gang violence will likely remain de facto legal in this country. That's 8% of the asylum budget. Get the picture? These numbers reflect political choices. And our leaders on both the left and the right have clearly made a choice to represent anybody and everybody except you, the British people. We're saying goodbye to winter fuel payments for our grandparents, family farms that have existed in this country for generations, public services in our communities, safe streets. Also, we can put illegal migrants from vastly different cultures into fancy hotels with cash cards, smartphones, and private healthcare. When a nation so visibly stops putting its own people first, when its leaders stop cultivating that shared sense of identity, history, culture, and ways of life that have long held us together in this place we call home, you have to wonder what will happen to that deeper sense of we. And in the end, I suspect that this will be the price that we're all forced to pay. The costs won't just be measured in money, in GDP, but in the destruction of all those things that make a nation and which have long held us together in this remarkable place that we all call home. This is Matt Goodwin for GB News, asking you to really think about what makes a nation and what's at stake when we lose sight of those fundamental ingredients. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. See you soon. Stay safe.